Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Adam from Spirited Systems. And tonight we're going to be talking about preparing for night combat. So this is an important subject to me. It's something that I saw firsthand in my service. Guys just really failing at it, struggling with it. So we wanted to put out a video to kind of help the younger generation understand just some techniques and some tools to really be effective at night and to prepare for night combat. That being said, we're going to talk about kind of a hasty way to do things and then a more deliberate way. We're going to start with the deliberate because you should be prepping for things and you should have time, but you know, operations don't always happen when we want them to, so sometimes you have to do them quickly. So for the first thing that I'm going to check when I am getting ready, I'm going to start checking my night vision. That's the first item. So I'm going to come over to my pouch on my vest where I keep my night vision, and then I am going to remove it. You can see here that it's tied down. This is something I can't stress enough, is having some sort of tie down on your goggles, whether that's in your kit or if it's tied to your helmet. At all times I keep my goggles tied down, and I wear them on my person. There might be some guys who disagree with it, but I've just found that if they're on your person, they're always there. You always have accountability for them, and you never don't have them. When I see guys put them in a pack or on their back panel or something like that, they'll get crushed, or they will you know, they just won't grab that bag when we bail out of a vehicle, and then now you don't have your nighttime capability, which is a huge disadvantage, especially if everyone else on the team has that capability and you don't. You're just kind of stumbling around, holding on to the guy in front of you, trying to, you know, keep up, and you can't see anything. You're pretty much ineffective on that team now. So the first thing that I want to check is just the physical aspects of the goggle. I'm just checking all the mechanical stuff. I'm making sure that there's no cracks or dents or scratches on my lenses, things like that. I'm going to open up the caps if you have them. I'm just going to visually inspect every part of the goggle and make sure that it all works. So my pods articulate correctly, it feels normal. I'm going to spin my objective lenses just a little bit, and don't worry about that. We're gonna refocus the goggles before we step off anyways. So I'm just gonna check again that functionality. This particular set of goggles doesn't have rear diopters. So if you have a set with diopters, you should zero those out and make sure that they can go, you know, all the way to zero and then back to the desired setting. Again, you're gonna refocus all of that anyways, and they have numbers on them so you can put them back to where they were, but you really wanna make sure your diopters work every time. I'm also going to check that my gain knob on this set of goggles, that it actually spins to make sure that that is still functional. And then lastly, I'm going to check my battery compartment. So I'm doing this for two reasons. One, I want to see if there is a battery in there and to ensure that there's a battery in there. And I'm also checking the functionality of the battery cap itself to make sure that it actually seals back down and I have a good seal on it and it's nice and tight. A note on batteries, if you are, you know, I know a lot of guys are going to comment about this. If you're on a no-fail mission, if you're driving a vehicle or you're piloting an aircraft or something like that, you should really swap your batteries out before every mission that you go out on. If you come from a kind of an equipment denied environment, that's where I found myself most of the time. We just didn't have enough stuff. We didn't have enough batteries to, you know, swap out every single night as we were doing multiple operations a night. If I had swapped it out the night before or, you know, recently, I'm not going to swap it out. I'm just going to leave it in there. But again, if I'm going to be driving a vehicle or something like that, I'm definitely going to swap it out so that they, you know, it doesn't die on the way. That is another thing that I really recommend practicing. You have to know how to swap your battery on your goggles while it is mounted to your helmet. So something of note, just remember you should be practicing as a team. Practice changing your batteries, know how to do it in the dark with, you know, gloves on, all that stuff. The next thing I'm going to check is my helmet, mainly because, you know, I mount my night vision to my helmet, but before I do that, I want to make sure that my helmet is in working order. So I'm going to check out my shroud first. I'm just going to make sure that, it looks like it's supposed to. There's no visible damage. I'm not feeling any like significant burrs or anything like that in the mounting surfaces. Everything looks like it's in order and it should be. I'm really not expecting to find something, but this just prevents me from having an issue with it and then trying to step off into the night, and now I can't mount my night vision to my helmet. So I've checked that. That's good to go. Flashlights, a lot of guys are using them now. They're really useful tools. I really recommend having one. I like this mount because it articulates, so I can put it in different positions. I can look really, deliberately at something. I can also shine it forward. But I'm gonna go ahead and check and make sure that it works. So it looks good. What I like to do is I'll usually point this at a surface and I will just hold it for a second. What I'm doing is making sure that the light doesn't dim. If it starts to dim, the battery needs to be swapped out. So it didn't dim, so we're good. This particular light is a vampire light. It's a Surefire product. So it has this little vampire head on it, which means that I can adjust it by pulling and spinning the front. So I am going to ensure that it is on an IR setting so that it doesn't get discharged negligently on the objective. I'm not white lighting something I don't want. If I need white light, I can always switch it back. So for night operations, I'm always gonna change that over. I'm just gonna ensure that it's there. This would also be the time that I check if I have a battery pack. If I'm utilizing a battery pack, I'd check it, but I usually don't use it, so just leave it there. I'm gonna check my strobe. So a couple of notes on strobes. This is a Mana strobe. This is the one I prefer. Now, a lot of guys, there's a lot of different strobes and a lot of guys like different models, but my argument for the Mana is that whenever you turn it on, it automatically goes into a covert mode. And I think that's important because guys don't get enough training reps on something like a strobe light. And I've just seen it too many times in the real world where guys will turn on something and it's a bright green light or it's a flashing white light or something, whereas this just doesn't afford you the opportunity to mess that up. So I'm gonna check the functionality of it just really quickly. I'm just gonna turn it on. And the cool thing about this strobe is that it actually vibrates when you turn it on. So I felt it vibrate, so I know it has power. And if I wanted to, I could check the actual functionality of the strobe as well by pushing through the menus and then basically putting it into an overt mode. And then that would tell me that for sure the overt mode of the strobe is working, the strobe vibrated, shut it back off, and then now I know it will be in that covert mode the next time that I turn it on. So I'm gonna check that. And then the last thing I'm gonna check before we mount up the night vision device is just my ears, right? I'm gonna make sure that my mic is secured, and everybody has a different type of headset. So if yours doesn't match this, you just gotta change your procedure to match whatever your headset is. But with the amps, I'm just gonna make sure that my arms have tension on them, they articulate. I'm gonna make sure that my mic is attached, and then I'm gonna make sure that I have my plugs in and everything like that. Again, serviceability is the key here. I'm also going to put the helmet on. There's a couple reasons. I get a quick fitment check, so I know, my pads are all good to go still, everything's in the right spot. And then I'm just gonna put my ears down and I'm going to check the functionality of the hearing protection, right? Because if something's wrong with it, now is the time to know, not when I'm stepping outside and all of a sudden one ear cup doesn't work. It also tells me that it has fresh batteries in it. Leave it on for a second, make sure I don't get a low battery warning, and then I'm gonna shut it back off. I'm gonna take that off. So at least now I know that everything up until this point has batteries in it and is probably ready to go. So I'm gonna go back over to my kit where I store my shroud, or excuse me, my mount. So this is a CADX mount. It doesn't really matter what mount you have as long as it works for your system. Again, I'm gonna check it really quick and just make sure that everything appears to be in working order, the functionality of it. I don't do a lot of adjustment checks on this because this is usually pretty finely tuned to your specific preferences, so I don't wanna throw it out of tune. But I'm gonna go ahead and mount it up, and on this particular model, I'm gonna lock it in place, make sure that it mounts and it does not come off. I'm also gonna check functionality really quick just to make sure it articulates the right way. And then I'm gonna mount my goggles to it. So I'm just gonna grab my goggles. This is a dovetail, so they just slide into place. And then an important note, I'm gonna take that same tie down and I'm going to secure it to the helmet itself. Again, I know a lot of guys don't like to tie their night vision down or tie equipment down. It's kind of like a big Army or big Marine Corps thing to do. But I'll tell you this much, I've seen a lot of guys lose their night vision devices on an operation, literally fall, they hit something, they step off a helicopter the wrong way, and they catch it, and then their nods fall off. Because we had an SOP to where everybody has everything tied down, those night vision goggles would just hang. So that guy would run to wherever his point of security was, and then he could just remount his night vision if they were still serviceable, and he didn't have to sit there and try to crawl around looking for night vision. Plus, we're never leaving that stuff behind on the objective for somebody else to use and then use against us. So my helmet is pretty much set up and ready to go, but we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is the weapon system. So I wanna, again, just visually inspect everything about this weapon system. Now in this deliberate kind of preparation that we're doing, I might not have a fully loaded firearm, but I am gonna check just to make sure it's clear. So it's still clear, just like every time I do anything with the weapon, I'm gonna check that first. For night tools, I'm gonna start looking at my optic. And what I wanna know about my optic is it on and is it on the setting that I want it to be on for the type of operation that we're doing. My recommendation for guys who are going to be using their lasers and not really passively aiming is to set your red dot up to work with a white light override. So if you're gonna be using your white light to punch through somebody else's white light or something like that, you want this bright enough to where you can actually see through the white light and use your sight effectively. If you are worried about a near peer threat, so they have lasers, they can see at night as well, you're probably gonna wanna put this on a passive aiming mode, so that night vision mode, so that you aren't using your laser to aim with, you're actually using that. So for me, in the type of operation that we're pretending to prep for, we're gonna say it's like an urban environment and we're not really worried about a near peer. So I'm gonna set this to a high visual range. And then I'm just gonna confirm pointing in a safe direction. And I'm going to make sure it is on the power setting that I want, usually all the way up and then one back for white light at nighttime. Then I'm gonna check the functionality of my white light. Again, I'm visually inspecting everything, making sure nothing looks out of place, making sure that everything is tight and ready to go. And then again, I'm gonna aim at that safe space and I'm just gonna activate the white light. I'm gonna hold it and I'm gonna make sure that that light did not dim. Again, if it's dimming, you need to swap your batteries, or if you swap them and it's still doing it, then there's something wrong with your light, you need to repair it or get it repaired. Laser, same business. I'm going to grab the laser, I'm gonna try to move it on the rail. If you sense any movement, there's something wrong. And I have seen it before where guys, it comes loose or something and you can move it a little bit. If you have time, obviously tighten it down, go confirm your zero. If you can't, tighten it down and maybe don't be the guy that is gonna be aiming with your laser on this operation. I enjoy them all. As you guys probably know if you watch the channel, I'm going to put it on the Viz mode, right? And what this enables me to do is I'm gonna aim in that safe space and then I'm going to just check my functionality by tapping the switches and then moving my rocker up, and then I can see that the functionality is there, right? Because it's mirrored on the IR side. We're still gonna reconfirm the IR side as well, but I at least know like my switches are working and my rocker is working. It's actually adjusting the laser. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip that off for now, but now I know that my weapon is ready to go. So moving on to a handgun. If you carry a handgun, if you're in like a law enforcement setting, you probably carry a handgun and you are gonna have it set up probably to be useful in the daytime. A lot of agencies now have switched over to red dots. I think that's awesome. I think you should have one. They also have lights on their pistols, which is great. But if you are intentionally setting it up for night, you actually shouldn't really change anything in my opinion. So same thing, I'm going to make sure that the weapon is clear, right? The weapon is clear. I am going to aim the weapon into a safe space and I'm going to confirm that my daytime settings are there. So my optic should be on the same settings that I would run in the day, if not one setting brighter, because we're gonna be using really bright white lights. And then I'm going to check my white light as well, make sure that it doesn't dim, okay? It doesn't dim, the functionality works. So now I know that my handgun is ready to go, right? So all of the batteries are there, the light works, everything works as it should. So I'm just gonna set that to the side. The next thing I wanna talk about is kind of some safety stuff. And it's something that I see guys ditching almost immediately on operations at night because it's just hard to maintain something like iPro. You're sweating, it's usually the temperature range is weird. It's either really cold and you're fogging up or it's really humid like it is right here in this building that we're in. But these goggles these glasses will fog up. So, do what you have to do to keep them clean. Cat crap, wipe the lenses down, prep them. For any of your lenses, if you are in a humid environment or if you're in a transitional environment where you're hot on the inside and it's cold on the outside, you have to take an additional step with this procedure. Either put your equipment outside before you don it all and you check everything for that final check, or you have to just stand outside until everything equalizes, because all of these lenses on your night vision goggles, on your weapon, you know, your iPro, gas mask, whatever it may be, those are all going to fog up. So you have to be prepared with that. Most guys carry now a small lens cloth in their pocket or on their kit so that they can wipe lenses as they go. I would say on your next training operation, make sure to just wear your iPro the whole time and just make no exception. Like, figure out what you have to do to get this to work right. You don't want to lose your eyesight because you eat a breech or something like that. That goes for all your lenses though. They will fog up. Cat crap has worked the best for me over the years, but it's not a fix-all. It doesn't always fix everything. Another thing that I will check pre-mission is all of my chem lights. If you are doing some kind of assault that requires you have chem lights and you know what you're doing with them, I recommend checking your bundles, making sure that the chem lights are fresh, that you have the right colors for the assignment. I will also check my red chem light, blue chem light, you know, for casualties or for marking specific things, specific threats. I'll check all of that stuff. Another piece of equipment that I like to carry is one of these battery operated chem lights. And this one is super useful, especially if you're on if you're doing multiple operations a night, if you're a cop, things like that. This is a great tool because you don't have to have a million chem lights in your budget. You can carry one of these and use it to signal people or whatever. So I always carry one of those with me as well. So I'll check to make sure that the battery is functional in that as well. Stepping over to my kit, I want to make sure that I have, specifically for night operations, that I have spare batteries, right? And there's, depending on the length of the operation, it's going to determine what you have. But even for just an operation that's supposed to be one night, I'm still going to carry probably 3 spare batteries for my night vision. I just find that you carry them for your night vision, but then somebody's GPS dies, or another guy's night vision dies, so you end up sparing one out to somebody or loaning one out to somebody. So I'm going to carry those 3 spares, and then I carry an extra set for my ear pro, and then I also carry an extra coin battery that will fit in both of my optics on my rifle and my pistol. And then I will carry a spare radio battery for my radio, whichever type of radio you're using. So I will check that as well. The next thing I'm going to do is confirm my focus on my night vision goggles. And so there's a couple different ways to do this, but the way that I prefer is to use something like this chart over here. You can see it's called a Snellen chart. It is the same chart that you use at the eye doctor. You can see that this one only has E's on it. I picked that one just for you guys because it is the one for illiterate people, so they don't have to try to guess the letters. So they look at the number combo and the letter, and then they kind of figure it out from there. So it's all E's. All kidding aside, the real reason why we chose it is because the E's are very crisp lines, right? So the procedure for this is you'll have a guy stand close to it with a headlamp. You'll turn all the lights off. He'll hit it with a headlamp, and you'll go about 20 feet away, and then you will focus your goggles to the line that you can to get the most acuity out of the night vision that you possibly can. There's whole procedures for this. If you are in the military, you have a shop somewhere in your battalion or your brigade that can help you with this. That's actually their job, to help you with this stuff. So seek them out. They have a better chart than this. They have 2 different charts that they can use, or maybe even 3. They can use those charts. They can show you the procedures. They can give you those charts. You can bring them on deployment with you. And what this does is it enables you to functions check your night vision before you step off on each operation, and make sure that you are getting the visual acuity that you are supposed to get with your assigned goggle type and your vision and all of that. So the other method is you can focus on a light source that is kind of at infinity, and you can focus on that. A lot of guys use stars. I've used stars a lot in Afghanistan, nice clear sky. I would focus on that, and for longer range outdoor stuff, it works well. But a trick that I think you should be implementing, especially in this day and age where there's so many options out there, is having some kind of aperture control device on the front of your goggles, right? So basically what this does is, this is wide open, this is normal. I would focus my goggles to, be in focus with the chart at 20 feet or so, and then I would flip these bad boys up, and they're reducing the aperture to a smaller size. Now this does limit the amount of light that is coming in. So if you're in a very, very dark structure, you're in the basement of a structure in a high-rise building and there's no power, you might have to go back to opening these guys up if you can't use your illuminator, right, on your rifle. If you can use your illuminator, you're gonna be just fine. But what this does is it reduces the aperture, so it gives you more depth of field, so more stuff is in focus up close and afar. So I can be looking at something, you know, very close to me, like I could actually see, say, a magazine or something. I could see if there's rounds in it right here, but then I can look up and I can identify a person who is standing across the room from me, and I could PID them all at the same time. Normally, you would have to adjust your objective lens to focus either close or to focus it far away. So it's a very low-tech tip. You also can just make these. So you don't have to buy a set. There's a bunch of companies who sell them. You can also just get Butler Creek caps, drill a hole in each one and about the size of a 5.56 casing, and you'd be completely fine. The Butler Creek tip I got from Rich down at Darcy, so give credit where credit is due there. So at this point, I've checked everything. I have batteries and all my stuff. I've checked all my pouches are closed back up. I kind of have all my kit ready to go. At this stage, my night vision is focused on the chart before I even step outside. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, get into all my kit and then get ready to step out. So at this point, I've gotten all my equipment on, turned my headset on, everything's working fine. I'm going to do a comms check. That's something that I think a lot of guys, they wait till they get outside, they try to do a comms check, they realize something isn't working. Now they have to like rush back into the facility and they have to pass a bunch of people and clog up the doorway and stuff like that. So I'll just do a comms check with somebody near me. Once I have that comms check and my ear cups are working fine, then I would step outside, right? So I'd go to wherever that area is that we would, make ready for the actual operation itself. So I would take my rifle first, and if I have light, there's no difference, right? There really is no difference to loading the rifle. If I don't have light and you don't have focusing caps and everything is just wrong, there is a technique that you can use to just to kind of help you load the rifle. So what you'll do is you'll take your magazine and you will put your finger on the top here, and you will see if there is a round on the right or the left. In this particular case, there's a round on the right side, so I know where the round is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to load the magazine. I'm gonna point the rifle in a safe direction. I'm gonna go ahead and charge it. I'm gonna drop the magazine, and then I'm gonna feel and make sure that now there is a bullet on the left side. I know that the bullet most likely went into the gun and did not disappear. So I know that my weapon is ready to go, or my rifle is ready to go. With my pistol, it's a little different because I can't like inspect the magazine with my finger because there's only one bullet on the top. So that's not gonna help me. So what I'll do here is I will put the magazine in, I will rack the slide, and then I will just do a press check. I'll stick my finger down inside and I will ensure that I feel the case, and then I will let it go, put it on safe, holster it, knowing that my pistol is loaded as well. I'm gonna do one last check. So I would put my nods down, and this is kind of where I do really the last fine tuning of everything, right? If my mount was a little off, I'm gonna adjust that. If something's wrong, everything should be pretty well focused at this point, but if there's something wrong, I'm gonna correct it. I'm gonna take my rifle, I'm gonna switch over to the IR mode on my laser, and then I would aim in that safe direction, and then I would just check that my laser is in fact on the mode that I want it to be on. And then I'm ready to go, right? I'm gonna chalk up my guys, and we're gonna stand by and wait to actually, board an aircraft, walk out of an area, or do whatever we have to do. So that was the deliberate method that we just talked about, and now we're gonna talk about a hasty method for preparing for night combat. So the hasty version of this is a situation where you could get called out onto a mission at night and you are not preparing to do a daytime operation. So you're probably on a reverse schedule. You're gonna have everything pretty much already prepped. So if you think about daytime operations, you would have everything ready to go pretty much. The big differences between like a hasty kind of methodology and a deliberate is that we're probably gonna have firearms already loaded in cubbies, ready to go, just eliminating that one step. We're gonna have our night vision already mounted to our helmets. We're gonna have radios with fresh batteries in them. Everything's gonna have fresh batteries after the last operation. So it's actually kind of a reverse. So I would be coming in from an operation and I would essentially have all of my stuff, right? And if we are okay to have hot guns in the team room or whatever, then I'm gonna leave it hot. If it not, I'm gonna clear it out. Not a big deal. That's pretty easy to follow. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically take off all of my stuff, and I'm just going to immediately start preparing for the next operation based off of what has happened on this operation. So taking everything off, I'm going to start unpacking all of my batteries, but I'm not going to be taking any of it off of my helmet, right? I'm gonna swap batteries on pretty much every piece of equipment I have besides probably my optics. So my lasers, my flashlights, all of that is gonna get fresh batteries because I'm prepping for that hasty kind of action where I just don't have time, right? So I'd be removing everything. I'm gonna recock all of my equipment. So fresh batteries on my radios. I'm gonna fix any little problem that I have, leave everything set up in a very, very neat and deliberate manner. All of my mission essential equipment will be stacked and ready to go. And then I'm going to, basically leave everything how it is. Now, say that we get actually, called up for that hasty action and we need to get out of the team room very quickly. I'm basically going to rapidly don my vest, rapidly don my helmet, grab my rifle, all that stuff. I'm just gonna grab it, and then I'm gonna start heading out the door, right? So we skipped some pretty critical steps that we've already completed in that tear down phase and that kind of recocking phase, where we're basically going to do all of those things we did in the, kind of deliberate methodology. We're gonna do them after the last operation so that the next time we go out, it's already ready to go. So if I need to refocus things, I'm gonna use the chart, I'm gonna refocus them. Then I'm gonna set my helmet in the cubby so that it doesn't get knocked around, it doesn't get moved, and then it'll be ready to go. So then we get called out, I'm gonna put it all on, head out the door. Everything should be good to go because I've already visually inspected it and I've kept good care of it. And then I'm just gonna step off and be ready to go. So 2 methods, the deliberate, the hasty, which really, if you think about it, it's one method, but we're just doing it in a different order. We're kind of doing it at the end instead of the beginning of something, and then we're leaving it set up because we're preparing for that hasty action at night. Both of those methods can be utilized whether you have a team room or not, whether you're on an operation for multiple days or not. You can still utilize the same methodology to kind of get things done. So guys, I appreciate you checking out the channel again, learning about this stuff. I think it's really important that we share information like this. Makes everybody a little bit better. Please like, subscribe, comment on what you want to see in videos. We really enjoy reading the feedback from you guys. It gives us ideas on what guys want to hear about. Also, we really, really want to know where Braxton is taking you on your honeymoon to Italy with him. Whoever that guy was that commented that. So just let us know. If you want to see other nighttime videos, let us know in the comments. And until next time, guys, we'll see you.